Hey everybody, welcome back to another crochet vlog. I'm Kit. I don't usually really introduce myself in the beginnings of videos, huh? Anyway, let's see here. Last time we basically left off, had the POV shift, back to Caroline a little bit. Basically, she read what note Eli left for her after her conversation with her godmother, Eileen. And she was also told that some big confrontation is going to be real soon. Um, so Simon gave her something to help along with that. And we swapped over to Caroline. Again, she read what Eli wrote, realizing that Eli is, in fact, the heir for the chaotic magic of the family. And good thing, too, because she's got a little bit of a problem here. Your heir had better be ready Monday at 7:30 p.m. And, well, it's Monday, so, yeah. So we're picking up right where we left off at Chapter 5, Trial of the Queen. We're back to Eli's point of view. And I hope everybody's having a good Tuesday. It was early evening when I managed to drag myself away from work, my bag slung over my shoulder, my clothes from earlier poking out just slightly. I had had a change for a meeting that required more intimidation than that outfit could give. With a new black leather jacket on, conveniently covering the bracelet and hanging charms, I whistled merrily as I walked in the door and was immediately confronted by a freaking out Caroline. Before I could run for the hills, she slammed the door closed behind me from across the room. Yeah. She felt the house rocking under me, surely in response to my confused apprehension and her obvious nerves. Where have you been? Why doesn't anyone have your number? We're going to be late. She all but shrieked into my ear, splitting my eardrums. I winced in pain, dropping my bag to the ground to gently touch my ringing ears. My eyes darted around the room, taking in Trevor, my mother, Victor, and Madeline waiting around impatiently. But for what? Me? Good grief, I hope not. I don't want to go anywhere with them, I thought to myself, before being shaken by my fidgeting grandmother. I don't know. I don't know anything. Where are we going to be late? If it's dinner reservations, I'm actually full, but thank you for the invitation. I managed to get out as she shook me. She huffed in exasperation before dragging me out the door, followed by the rest of the family, who were all dressed very formal. My jeans and sneakers looked very out of place. Madeline eyed my leather jacket with distaste, which made me roll my eyes. I was struggling to walk upright, still being dragged by an unrelenting Caroline. Sheesh, what has gotten into her? Eventually, I tugged hard enough that she let me loose, stopping to grab me again, to which I backed up rapidly. Excuse me, but where are we going and what are we late for? I demanded, crossing my arms over my chest. I eyed their faces. Caroline's was downright panicked. Madeline looked angry and slightly confused as to why I was here. My mother's was largely confused and a little irritated, and Trevor looked like he always did, a stoic rabbit, tapping intently at his iPhone 6. Wow, this was a long time ago. Madeline asked a question of her own. Why is she here? Carolyn waved her response away. I can't tell you, Eliana, but we'll be late enough as it is. Oh, good Lord, we have to be there in 15 minutes. Off we went again, all of us practically running to keep up with Carolyn. Who knew elderly women could run like a cheetah? All the while dragging my poor arm, which was going to get ripped out of its socket at this rate. We finally stopped at a small woodland park near our neighborhood. Crossing a little bridge offered safe passage over the small rocky stream. It was a small island that had nothing special, or so I thought. Hidden by bushes, there was a circle of river stones, smooth and round in perfect symmetry. Each was glowing with a special rune, and there was a wispy substance in the center, not unlike the substance that was rifts and memories. But it was less than what I was used to. Carolyn wasted no time pushing me in, followed by the rest of the family. I caught myself just in time, my hands sinking a few inches in the dark swampland mud. My lower half fared no better, landing a few feet deep in black water. Madeline shrieked loudly when her long black dress landed in the muddy water a few feet behind me. I pushed myself up carefully, testing the earth underneath my wet feet. I was glad I had worn my hair in a ponytail, eyeing my mother's long, wet brunette hair. Caroline appeared from the bright circle in the middle of the air at last, leaning with a grace that was difficult to believe for an older woman. She brushed off imaginary lint and pointed ahead. Ah, there it is, and it hasn't even changed. With a look of semi-fond remembrance, she marched forward through the knee-high water and mud. Trevor grabbed Victor from the small bit of land he had managed to land on, seeing as he was still so short, and hefted him on his shoulders to carry. I sighed, tired of the secrets of which this family seemed to run on, and trudged forward. I took this time to examine what Caroline had pointed at. It was a big mansion, old yet still majestic, just sitting in the middle of a swamp that belonged in Louisiana by the smell. Maybe we were in Louisiana for all I knew. Why was the question I wanted to ask, but I knew it wasn't the right time for such questions. We all fought through the mud and water in silence, each of us wondering what would happen once we got to the house, and if there was any snakes or alligators in the water. That would be my biggest concern. I kept touching the bracelet and charm just to reassure myself that they were still there, the faint stars of magic enough to keep me going. I wasn't alone. I would be fine. I had been in far worse situations than being in a swamp at dusk, I kept telling myself. But no matter what I said, I still didn't like it. It was a few minutes still before we were able to climb the top of the many stairs leading to the mansion. It looked even more haunting and old in person, my eyes glazing over the old door where Caroline went ahead and knocked rapidly. I took a cautious breath, tasting the magic that was waiting for something. For me. I quickly shook myself. I was beginning to imagine things. This wasn't the brownstone, and it certainly wasn't waiting for me, nor was it trying to give me access to his magic. Nope, not at all. The doors creaked open ominously, but no one seemed to be inside. We slowly walked in, Caroline taking point, into quite possibly the largest hallway I have seen in my life. Here and there was a torch that was flickering with a mysterious green and blue flame to light the way, but otherwise it was all dark and cobwebs everywhere. No sign of life. It was then that I smelt it, the wind swirling playfully around us, bringing his scent to my nose, which breathed it in like I was a thirsty animal. It pissed me off. It had been over 4 years ago, and we hadn't even spent more than 2 hours together, yet he managed to break through my walls and leave me thinking about him. Darn him. Now he was here. Why? At the end of the hallway was a cracked door with a silhouette of light pouring from it. I could hear voices coming from the room, and my ears strained to hear the voice I wanted to hear. I didn't. Then the door swung open, showing a bunch of teenage boys and an older gentleman, all with their backs turned to us as if the house wanted us, no, me, to see them all arguing animatedly. I strained to hear it, but Caroline ruined it. "We are here, Narcus," she spoke crisply, as if this was a business deal. The boys quickly disappeared, all except for one, who had his back still turned and was holding something. I grasped the charm on my bracelet to reassure myself. I hated not knowing what was going on. The man turned, and I swallowed my gasp. His eyes were a stormy gray, hello British English, with flashes of thunder. Just like his. The man had masculine features, all muscle and very tall. His inky black hair was in a businessman's cut and gelled away from his face. Pale skin, pink lips, and no beard stubble. His mouth was twisted in a malicious smirk. And here I was wondering whether you would grace us with your presence at all, Caroline. His voice was like the gentle lulling of a boat, meant to put you to sleep. I noticed Madeline out of the corner of my eye yawn covertly. Victor almost fell off his father's shoulders, and my mother shuddered as the magic skipped right past me into the rest of them. I briefly wondered why. "We ran a bit late is all, Narcus, but we are here now." Caroline placated him, gesturing with her hands. "The trials can go on as planned, and we'll just have to run a bit late is all. Not a big deal," she assured him. But I noticed her flinch when he laughed in her face. Uh-oh. "A little late? You are almost an hour late. We will most certainly not be prolonging the trials. Your heir will just have to pay for your mistake. You Laveaux always think that the world falls at your feet, but we walkers won't. You forget your place in this house, Caroline." He shouted the last part, towering over my pale white grandmother. I felt the house rock under my feet, but I stayed rock steady. Okay, so hour late. I just want to point out daylight savings time, because I was sitting there puzzling it out in my head, and then I remembered. So this was his house. The Walkers. I bit my lip, fighting a laugh. Yeah, that made lots of sense. Come on, Dad, let's just start. The mad one is gonna need all the time she can get. I snorted, which thankfully was covered by Madeline's shriek of outrage. Pardon me, he laughed at her peacock voice, as I like to call it, finally turning around. His eyes swept over all of us, calmly eating his potato chip, the same potato chip he'd choked on when his eyes met mine. It was then that I was sucked into the past, the one we shared together. I had been walking home from work in the dark when the memory had sucked me up. It was a powerful one, and I collected myself when I landed in it. When I opened my eyes, I was in a wooded area, but that wasn't the surprising part. A boy was here, and he looked upset. I sighed out loud, getting ready to follow him, when he looked up in shock. Who are you? This is my realm. Get lost, he hissed at me, hurriedly wiping his eyes, which were puffy and red. I stared at him and snorted. Yeah, right? This is my realm. You get out. The memory called to me, not you, I countered, crossing my arms over my chest. I marveled at the fact that he could see me. For all my years of traveling, which, granted, weren't many at this point, I had never encountered another person. It was a single traveler to a memory. Period. End of story. This isn't a memory, it's a dream, you dimwit, the boy snarled back, and to his surprise I laughed at his face, hugging my skinny tummy. I cried as I laughed. That had to be the worst insult I'd ever heard. Stop laughing at me, he yelled, pouting, which just made me giggle some more. Eventually he cracked a smile, and we laughed together for a few more minutes until we sobered up with hiccups and grins. Told you it was funny. His grey hello, British English, actually lighting up to be rather pretty. He had midnight black locks curling around his attractive face like a surfer's hair. I quickly looked down when I blushed. I was only 13, and Daddy said I couldn't date until I was 30. Who are you? What's your name? I mean, he corrected himself, looking down as well to study the rock I was admiring. It was a round pebble, nestled in the green grass. Nothing special about it. Eliana, I muttered, wincing. I always had hated my name. Daddy said that Mom picked it out. I frowned, not wanting to think about her. The boy nodded. Dimitri. I'll just call you Leah. He smiled. He decided, smiling to himself. His eyes studied mine and they widened. Whoa, your eyes are different colors. That's so cool. I blushed again, biting my lip as I smiled. Thanks, Dim. You really think so? I asked him softly, feeling shy. No one had ever said my eyes were cool. Just weird. It made me feel warm and fuzzy everywhere for him to say that. Like I was being hugged by Auntie Ali. She always had the best hugs. Yeah, I wish my eyes were like that. He sighed wistfully, still eagerly examining mine. When a sun's ray hit my face, his eyes went. I'm sorry if my reading's not on point. My brain is not being productive or nice or good right now. Anyway, his eyes widened as he saw my eyes change colors. My right blue eye got brighter, practically glowing, where my left green eye got darker. I found myself admiring his eyes. They were a pretty gray, with storm clouds and refreshing rainy days. I told him so, which made the tips of his ears turn pink. You think so? He stuttered as I nodded at him earnestly. We could have stood there, under the trees and skies, and talked for ages. Or sky. I wanted to, but then I felt the nudge of magic, urging me to find what I came here for. I sighed sadly. I gotta go, Dim. It was really nice meeting you. Bye. I waved sadly before walking slowly forward, leaving him there, his pretty gray eyes all at me. Oh my god. I watched for a few more minutes before his echoing shout reached my ears. Hey, wait up! Leah! He shouted over and over, huffing as he ran. He was fast. He skidded to a walk beside me and grabbed my hand. I jumped slightly, expecting to find his clammy hand disgusting, but I liked it. I looked at him quizzically. So I don't lose you again. I felt a warm, fuzzy feeling all over, and I blushed, ducking my head. He gestured ahead. Shall we continue, milady? He tried for a British accent, and I giggled, nodding. I didn't trust myself to speak, otherwise I would laugh. We began to walk a ways, me tugging him this way and that to follow the trail of magic. I kept waiting for him to question where we were going and why, but he never did. We walked in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Rather like walking with your best friend. Not needing to communicate through anything but silence. I smiled the entire time, and my smile kept getting bigger as Dim kept sneaking shy glances in my direction. I felt really happy, happier than when I beat Dad on game night, or when Eileen convinced my dad it was okay for me to travel on my own. So that's actually something I've noticed is one memory to one. traveler, period. Unless. No, actually, I guess that does somewhat make sense. Because memories and rifts are different things. Just a distinction I need to make. Again, world building and stuff. This is a first draft, y'all. Sorry. Eventually, we came out to a beautiful oasis. It was sandy with green patches of grass scattered around a gorgeous watering hole. The water was crystal clear, its surface like glass, reflecting the hanging palm trees and pristine skies. Dim dropped my hand and ran forward, peering intently into the water, watching the fish swim lazily by. I took the opportunity to look deeper into the magic trail. It was getting stronger, my senses on overdrive, but everything telling me forward and up. Up? So I looked forward and up, and found a hill overlooking the oasis. Perched on top was an Egyptian palace. I looked at the magnificent place with my mouth wide open, and I pointed at it, catching Dim's attention. There! I cried. Dim looked, and was just as awestruck as me, both of us running together towards it. It was when we reached the base of the hill that we sensed them. Guards, a lot of them. Dim yanked me into some bushes, his hand covering my mouth, the other shushing me. Both of us struggled to hear even our labored breathing as they walked past. A tendril of fear clenched at my heart when they neared. There were 3 in the patrol group, and they had sharp-looking curved swords in their hands. Golden whips coiled at their waists, wearing Egyptian garb showing off toned chests of a full-grown man. But the worst part of the body was their heads. Where the human head should be, instead was a jackal head, with red angry eyes and saliva drooling from their extended teeth. I squeaked, the sound muffled through Dim's hands still covering my mouth. He hugged me to him gently as if to reassure me, which it did. Still, despite this, the guards heard and turned back, ready to attack. One began to sniff the air, then without a warning, all 3 charged at the bushes where we were hiding. My eyes widened and I got up to run, but Dim shouted something and waved his hands. I felt a strange form of magic radiating from him. It didn't affect me, but it affected everything else. As it surrounded me, it made me feel safe and secure. When it surrounded the jackalmen, they slowed down and collapsed, as their eyes closed, the deep embrace of a deep sleep, claiming them. I watched with my mouth opened, as even the vegetation began to droop. I checked myself to make sure I wasn't sleepy. No, but I still felt safe and secure. Dim was breathing hard at the end of it, the ends of his hair curling up even more with perspiration. I timidly walked up to him. Dim? What was that? I softly asked him, hesitantly touching his bare arm. It felt like I was touching frozen snow. He was freezing. I'm okay. It'll pass, he muttered to me, still breathing hard, but I could faintly hear his pulse coming down to a more reasonable level. I rubbed his arm, trying to get it to have more circulation, like Dad always did when I was cold. Thanks, he told me, rubbing his hands together. We just gotta be more careful, I assured him, before pulling him gently away from the snoozing guards. He followed willingly, and we continued, albeit more cautiously than before. Why do we need to get inside anyway? He whispered curiously as we crouched, out of sight of the jackal with a bow from a balcony that loomed above us. Thankfully, the grounds were lush and full of hiding places for 2 13-year-old kids. When the next set of guards passed us by without any complications, I answered him as we quickly moved to the next hiding place, inching ever closer to the bold archway that was the entrance. There's a treasure inside that I have to collect for me to leave this memory, I told him honestly, waiting for him to laugh at my face. Instead, he looked thoughtful, as if trying to understand the universe. Finally, he nodded. Huh, okay. So you're not a walker? I shook my head, eyebrows furrowed. We raced to the next bush. Nope, I'm a traveler. What's a walker? I had never heard of one before. Both of us held our breath, hand in hand, as yet another trio of guards walked by. Well, my dad explains it to me as someone who can access the world of dreams and manipulate and explore at our leisure, he said. The more powerful ones can do it when they are awake, but I'm asleep right now, he explained to me. I tried raising my left eyebrow, like my dad always does, but failed miserably. I flushed a fiery red as Dim began to giggle hysterically. Really? You look wide awake to me. Blep! Holy crap! I told him, glaring at him as he laughed. Hello, headset for dying. That shut him up, I observed with satisfaction. No one wanted to be on the wrong side of my glare. Well, I'm not, because this is a dream to me. Someone else's dream that I can manipulate to an extent, anyway. What's a traveler? This time it was me doing the explaining. Well, a traveler is someone who can access memories, rifts, and dimensions at any time, but sometimes these things seek us out, like this memory found me. We have to go, and we leave nothing behind in the real world, although you can if you're more powerful. But anyway, these ones seek us out on purpose, because we have to find an object in the memory, and either take it away because it's this time, or we have to make it more obvious if it's in the past. My dad says that the magic is a trail left for us by Father Time, and since we are his servants, we have to do his will. I shrugged uncomfortably under his studious gaze. It's kind of neat, actually, I finished, before tugging him to the last bush, the one closest to the entrance. I took the few seconds out in the open to quickly study the steps leading up to it. There were 6 jackals, all lined and staggered up the stairway. That's really weird, but whatever, was his eventual reply. He gazed hard on the jackals, still feeling the effects from his spellcasting from before. He shook his head, his hair falling into his eyes as he did so. I can't put them to sleep again. It was really hard and that needs to recharge. Can you do anything about them? I bit my lip, thinking. Well, Dad and Auntie Eileen say that if you concentrate hard enough on the memory in your magic, you can borrow abilities and power from it. They also say that the ability will manifest itself in time. I don't think I have it yet, because in old text it says that it presents itself to you only in an act of selflessness, or in great peril. I don't know what that means. I frowned, an idea slowly forming in my head. But maybe this will work. I spread my hands out towards the jackals, imagining the swords were under my control, like my bouncy ball back home, but instead of bouncing, they would turn on their owners. Eileen said that it was called telekinesis. I concentrated, my teeth digging into my bottom lip. Concentrate, concentrate. I mentally chanted, and after a minute of sweat and brain power, I felt my magic fizz out of my hands and streak towards the swords, which did my bidding, slicing deep gashes into the guards until they fell, leaking red liquid I didn't want to think about. I felt quite sick and was sure I turned green. Tim put his hands gently on my shaking arms once it was over. It'll be okay. The feeling will pass. You have to get the object, right? But you do what we have to do. That's what my dad says. He assured me softly, leading me up the stairs, his cool hands not covering my eyes so I didn't have to see the blood and bodies left by me. I killed people, I thought blankly. Even if inside a memory, they were still people. They were only doing their jobs. I slaughtered them in cold blood. I felt sick to my stomach and clammy like I would pass out. It was only Dim's presence that had me pushing onward, past the copper-tasting stench of the spilled blood, and closer to the steady thrum of magic somewhere under us. He didn't let go of me until I felt hard marble under my sneaker-clad feet, and the blissful shade graced my warm shoulders. I felt the magic tug beneath my sneakers. We have to go down. Maybe there is a basement? I suggested after he looked at me expectantly. We looked both ways. There was a straight path ahead of us, one to our left and one to our right. Dim shrugged and went left with me following him. There were still guards patrolling, but they were single now, and with tables, potted plants, columns, and alcoves around, it was easier than before to sneak around them. I felt giddy. This was like Sly the video game. I mind being a sneak to Dem, complete with a criminal mask and a tail. He grinned and nodded at me eagerly when he got my reference. We continued on, keeping our eyes peeled for doors, which were few and far between, but most were treasure rooms and always locked. I didn't even ask when Dim pulled out a lockpicking kit and managed to unlock each door. I made a mental note to ask Dad to teach me how to do that and to get me one when I got back home. Dim tried to take some of the treasures, but I always managed to drag his deft fingers away. After 20 minutes of fruitless searching, I felt frustrated. We had been at this forever, it seemed like, and we still hadn't found the basement. I was dejected. Dim sighed and opened the last door. This was a sitting room with a magnificent fireplace and tan marble and gold columns. We walked into the room, and as I examined the bookshelves, Dim spoke up behind me. "It's there!" he said excitedly, and I whipped around, frantically looking for whatever he was pointing at. But the room was still the same as before. I looked at him quizzically. Uh, where? He frowned at me, looking back and forth until understanding dawned in his sparkling gray eyes. He smiled fondly, walking forward, kneeling down on the lush carpet, and his hand went through the carpet. I blinked, darting forward. He seemed to be rummaging, his hand still through the floor, as if this was normal. Before I could burst out with questions, the stairs began to appear, and I saw his fingers tracing some sort of runes on them. When one step appeared, he would move on. I timidly tried each step, following him as we descended deeper into what appeared to be a dungeon of sort. Within a few minutes, we were at the bottom, looking at the corridor in front of us. This is where Sims 3 definitely came into play. There was fire everywhere, spouting from the ceiling, lava and funnels on the floor, all coming from traps set throughout the corridor. I swallowed audibly, feeling despair. I didn't know how to fix this. My dad never told me how about anything like this. I didn't have fire magic. I couldn't manipulate it, couldn't make it go away. I looked at Dem, watching the fire swim in his eyes, his expression thoughtful. Instinctively, I knew he could do something about the fire. Whatever this memory was, he said it was a dream for him. It wasn't a normal place, a normal instance in time. So when his eyes became unfocused, his palms stretched outward, I held back, letting him do his thing, still feeling oddly helpless. Dad had raised me to be self-sufficient, but it was only now that I realized what I was lacking in that department. Foret admonere reflexu aqua cae surgere. Fire's lesson to the tides. Let the waters rise. A voice in my head translated. I didn't know where it came from or how I knew that, but it made sense as suddenly I was standing in a corridor filling with seawater. It cooled the lava, making it molten stone, and the fire soon left. The entire ordeal took less than 20 minutes. When the fires were gone, the water was at mid-thigh, and it was kind of hard to move, but somehow I managed, grabbing onto Dim's taller shoulders for support. His longer legs cut through the ocean currents better than my shorter ones did, even as the water was slowly draining away into the nothingness from which it came. Even with him breaking the tides and making it slightly easier for me, um, it was still difficult for me to navigate through the water, so Dim decided it was time for drastic matters. I squealed in surprise as his hands yanked me up into a piggyback ride, my arms scrambling around his neck for purchase. I clung to him for dear life, silently screaming at him as he laughed. His laugh slightly squeaky, but deeper than a normal 13-year-old boy's voice. I smacked him upside the head while glaring at him, but smiling as well. How thoughtful of him. So it was like that. At the end of the corridor was a door, and beyond that door was a puzzle. It quickly showed how dim my comrade's intellect was for puzzles in secret. Oh my. Pun intended. So I hung back as I studied the pictograms on the walls and read the code again and again, finally deducing that the next door was a blank wall, and tapped the right stone pattern. The door slid open. It continued, both of us venturing deeper into the dungeon, using our collective talents and showing off in our own way to continue through. We were a good team, with me being the intellectual one, as my magic hadn't really surfaced yet, and him being the brawny one in most control of his magic. We became partners of sorts for the couple of hours we spent together. It was fun. He was like my best friend that I never had. We had a connection, one I was afraid to lose. When we finally got to the last room, the one where the magic was the strongest, it was a weird room. It was an attic, with creepy old children's toys and dollhouses, boxes covered in dust, and it was very crowded and cluttered. Dim sneezed and coughed, covering his mouth. I assumed he had allergies, but at that point I couldn't bring myself to care. The magic that was swelling in the room was suffocating me, chaining me, threatening to kill me. I had to find the relic. The magic wouldn't allow me to delay any longer. So I left him in the dust, letting my feet carry me to where the relic seemed to be, a table in the center, with the sun shining down from a window from up high. It was an amulet with a simple golden thread attached to it. At the center of the amulet was a stone eye of dazzling colors. When you looked into it and moved side to side, the eye shifted to follow you, changing colors as it did so. In the middle of it was a long stripe, like a snake's eye. It was set in sandstone, and the magic permeating from it was so strong it almost blew me off my feet. I was breathless, just barely managing to stand under its stare while squirming a little. Okay, I thought to myself. Now remember what Dad said. No sudden moves, just let your pure intent shine through yourself. You can take it, and then you will return. I chanted to myself over and over, slowly inching my way there. I reached out for it, but Dim came up from behind me and shouted, startling both me and the artifact, which unfortunately reacted. Whoa, that is so cool. Let me see, he demanded, awestruck by its eerie beauty. I yelped in horror as he reached for it. I felt the magic coil and explode, in which I reacted by grabbing Dim and yanking him with all my body weight back, and both he and I collapsed on the floor, the black snake's head striking where we just had been, its fangs glistening with unknown venom. I scooted back quickly, somehow dragging Dim with me. His eyes were wide and his mouth was open in horror. I swallowed, trying to make sense of the situation. The snake was easily the length of a car, maybe longer. Its body was strong, thick like a python's, but I instinctively knew that it wasn't of that species. The scales were shiny and black, moving with the snake as it descended slowly from the table, the rest of its body falling to the dusty floorboards with a heavy smack. It took its time, relishing in our terror. I moved my eyes to the head and instantly wished I hadn't. It was triangular, its eyes the same color as the amulet's eyes. Blech. But the eyes were darker somehow, angrier. Its fangs were long and protruding from its open mouth, showing an impressive array of razor-sharp teeth. Its tongue was grayish-black, flicking in and out, tasting our fear. It kept hissing, the sound vibrating its entire body. Then it was still, waiting, enjoying the hunt. Watch out, that's a really big black mamba, something inside of me warned. I shuddered, somehow knowing the venom dripping from its fangs could kill us in less than 5 minutes. Dim was in shock, mumbling coherently, but I caught bits and pieces of it. How? Just wanted to look. Lost some money, sell. Dad. Proud. I groaned mentally. Dad always warned me that an artifact could tell if you had malicious intent. He had also drilled in me that the worst intent was to sell it. It was just protecting itself, but it was angry. Someone would have to make a choice, and I knew it wouldn't be pretty. It would probably hurt. I sighed, centering myself. I was a traveler. I was supposed to protect people and artifacts from harmful elements. The snake began to move, slithering and coiling itself, preparing to strike again. Its eyes were on Dim, bright and angry. Suddenly it moved, lurching forward and latched its teeth into an arm. My arm. It had been aiming for Dim's face, but I leapt in front of him, my forearm protecting my face. The snake crashed into me, wiggling to grab me, its rough scales painfully scratching my skin. It wrapped its thick body around my arm, keeping it in place as it unloaded all of its venom into my blood. It was excruciating. I screamed and yelled, crying and blubbering, begging for it to stop. It was unbearable. Faintly, I heard Dim behind me, saying something, his arms wrapping around me, trying to give me comfort. He tried pulling the snake off of me to distract it, to get it to attack him, but it paid him no heed. It was angry. It had been insulted and threatened. It had to retaliate, and someone had to pay. I had made the hard choice and let it bite me. I already felt my body shutting down as the venom weaved through my bloodstream, and slowly but surely it was already taking effect. The snake finally emptied all its venom and unraveled itself from my fading body, leaving me broken in Dim's frantic embrace. I felt his tears streak down my cheek, my hand resting on his chest. He was crying, I thought faintly. The snake settled in a corner, its eyes a mellow amber now, watching us almost thoughtfully. It would cause no more harm. So this was it. This is what dying felt like. My breaths became shallow, my body sluggishly heavy as I tried to move my finger. My vision blurred to a dark gray with no cheesy tunnel of light to speak of. I couldn't even hear the sound of Dim's voice, which now sounded like thunderclouds crashing against the tides. I didn't care about the snake, or that I was leaving everyone I loved behind. If it was my time, it was my time. I wasn't exactly ready. I mean, I would have at least liked to have finished college first. But no one gets to choose when they die. They just do. I wondered briefly what it would be like on the other side when I felt it. It was like a deep stirring inside of me, like the calm of the sea hiding a great riptide. It was a bright light within me, deep in my subconscious, teasing me, waiting for me to just reach out and touch it. But my mind was sluggish. It was like trying to stir tar. I reached out, millimeter by millimeter, not even caring if it was physically or mentally. Trying to fight off the overwhelming darkness, I had to reach that light. I had to. The darkness was surrounding me, playing with my hair, just taunting me. You'll never reach it. Just give up. When it's your time, right? It'll be like sleeping. Forever. Doesn't that sound like fun? No, I tried shouting at them, and continuing to keep reaching, a little further, over the brick wall. Come on. Come on. Yes! It was like an explosion. Either in my head or outside of my body, it didn't matter. Sounds I had never heard, colors I had never seen, smells I had never smelt. It was all different yet the same, just deeper. I could feel the electricity from the torches, seeing the dust particles dancing in the air. I could smell the dampness of the snake's scales, but it wasn't enough. I drew a rowdy breath, one after another, and I could finally hear Dim. Yes, come on, you can't die. Don't leave me. Come on, come on. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Come on, you're stronger than this. He shouted his minty breath in my face as he roughly shook me. I felt the stinging in my arm, my lifeblood pouring from my ravaged skin. He was right. I was stronger than this. The power I had been following, had been feeling all this time. It was mine to use and control. I just had to take it, reach out for it, and brandish it, our wills meshed together towards a greater purpose. I couldn't die on the job. That artifact needed to be saved. It was what I meant to do. I was a traveler. With a new surge of determination, I grasped the power and yanked, bolstering under its energy, fighting, taking it within myself to fight back the venom that had seeped everywhere in my body, fighting it back, blow by blow, from my heart. I groaned, hunched over, screaming and swearing, fighting it out. It was even worse than being bit, but I wanted to live. I would go through heaven and hell if I didn't have to die now. That was what it felt like. Being roasted from the inside out and skinned alive while being choked, it making it very hard to breathe. Like breaking all of your bones while having a cool embrace of a loved one, caressing your forehead with a damp cloth and giving you the strength to move on. It was a bizarre feeling, and one I never wanted to feel again. I don't know how long I was hunched over fighting the venom, but after an eternity, it was finally over, the clear liquid in a mess of blood on the floor. I stiffly sat up, taking a shock. My arm was a bloody mess. Stuck. I looked like it had been through a meat grinder. There was bone showing, but I tried not to look too closely. Dim had collapsed in relief behind me, and after checking up on him, I found he was simply sleeping. Odd. I looked around for the snake next. It wasn't curled up in its corner. It wasn't even in the attic anymore. Instead, the necklace was where we had found it in the first place, placed innocently on top of the table, as if it hadn't just been bitten and had for breakfast. A post-it note was beside it, simply saying, "Sorry." I knew the artifact was sorry, in its own way. I could feel its sorrow for hurting me, someone who had simply tried to help it along in the world. Its sorrow was in the magic that surrounded the artifact, the pull I had felt, but gone since I had found it. I grasped the post-it note, reading the words and smiling at the amulet softly. "It's all right," I told it warmly, looking back at Dim, laying on the floor with my blood all over his oversized t-shirt. He looked peaceful, and I was really going to miss him. He wouldn't know why I was gone, or where. It saddened me. I wished I had paper and pen. The magic swirl swirled around me, and in a flurry of wind, the things I wished for appeared. I grinned. I could get used to this. It made me happy that my magic had finally come in. I guess the books were right. In a fight-or-flight situation, your magic does kick in. I was glad it happened when it did. It felt good to be battered but alive. I grasped the pen and paper, thinking of what to say. I ended up with this. Dem. Sorry I can't be there when you wake up. You and I come from different magics, different families, different ways of life. You're a walker. I'm a traveler. We're bound by the same by different forces. I just wanted to say thanks for everything and helping me out. I have a good life, I guess. Wish we could have spent some more time together, but yeah, some things just aren't meant to be. Leah. Putting the note down gently beside him, I grasped the amulet gently in my hands and let it take me home. Oh boy, I forgot about that whole part. I completely forgot about that whole part. I can definitely see where I could improve, for sure. Oh my, I hope you can't hear that behind me. But yeah, that's essentially how Dimitri and Eliana met. Dimitri is, well, you'll see in future, well, really in this chapter and future chapters. He's a pretty important character. He's pretty important to Eli. I mean, he's really her first crush, and sharing a life or death situation like that really makes you appreciate a person. Also, as you can tell, he's kind of an idiot. Um, yeah. But that's gonna be it from me. I hope everybody enjoyed. Hopefully we got a good amount done on that Christmas stocking I'm making. And yeah, I will see you all next week, and hopefully I'm not stuttering my way through and I'm actually talking with confidence. We will see, but have a great week, everybody, And I will see you. I'll see you when my headset dies, apparently. Yeah.